Hello everyone, we meet again. Today, let's talk a bit about the United States. And this time's story is truly a plot twist. The Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, the one who once brought Donald Trump to trial and fined him hundreds of millions of dollars, is now herself the defendant in a federal indictment. In the next few minutes, I'll walk you through why this case matters so much and how it could impact the turbulent political landscape of the United States. Note, this video is for analysis and reference purposes only and does not represent any political or media organization. Last week, the U.S. Department of Justice announced that Letitia James had been indicted by a federal grand jury. The reason may sound minor, but it touches on something very sensitive. She was accused of making false statements when applying for a loan to buy a house in Virginia. Specifically, she claimed it was a second home for personal use. But in reality, she rented it out, meaning it was an investment property, not a residence. If this accusation is proven true, she could face charges of bank fraud with a maximum sentence of up to 30 years in prison. At first glance, it might sound like an administrative mistake, but remember, this isn't an ordinary person. This is the Attorney General of New York, the very one who sued Donald Trump for alleged financial fraud in a very similar manner. So for many people, it feels like a scene from a movie where the hunter becomes the hunted. Right after the indictment, James responded quite firmly. "I am not afraid. I have nothing to hide. This is a political indictment, not justice." The Trump camp, of course, was visibly delighted. It's about time justice is served. And just like that, social media exploded. One side said, "This is blatant political retaliation." The other countered, "No one is above the law, not even Letitia James." 1. Behind the indictment. First of all, from a purely legal standpoint, to convict someone of bank fraud, prosecutors must prove there was a deliberate intent to deceive for personal gain. And in this case, we're talking about a seasoned prosecutor, someone who understands the law better than almost anyone. Therefore, unless there's extremely strong evidence, such as internal emails, rental contracts, or corroborating testimony, convicting her would be very difficult. But here's the interesting part. This case isn't being tried in New York, where she works, but in Virginia, another state. That's why many people suspect the prosecution might have been pushed from higher up, rather than initiated randomly. Remember, Letitia James is the one who forced Trump and his company to pay hundreds of millions of dollars. Trump once said publicly, she will pay the price. So, when the indictment came out, it's hard for the public to believe it was merely a coincidence. 2. The political angle, when justice becomes a tool. Here, we can clearly see America split into two halves. The Democrats say, this is political retaliation, a weaponization of the Department of Justice. The Republicans respond, no one is above the law. If she's innocent, let her prove it in court. And so, justice once again becomes a political battlefield. In theory, the American judicial system is designed to be independent. But in recent years, every major case, from investigations into Trump, Biden, to the Supreme Court, has been viewed through a partisan lens. In my view, the Letitia James case is a test of public faith. Do Americans still believe the law is applied equally, or is everything now just a game of power? Because if a prosecutor can be indicted simply for having once investigated a president, then next time, who would dare challenge power again?
3. The social perspective, when the public runs out of patience. Americans are exhausted. They feel as though there's no longer any room for neutrality. Everything is painted in partisan colors. Whoever wins the election investigates the other side. Whoever loses claims justice has been politicized. According to the latest surveys, only about 16% of Americans believe the judicial system is fair, a record low. When that trust collapses, every verdict, every indictment, whether right or wrong, will be viewed with suspicion. 4. The economic perspective, when politics ripples beyond Washington. It might sound distant, but every time the US faces political turmoil like this, the markets react immediately. Investors hate one thing above all: uncertainty. The US dollar fluctuates, bank stocks dip slightly, and a risk-averse mood spreads globally. In my view, this isn't just an internal American issue, because when America sneezes, the whole world, well, catches a cold.
If we look back, this isn't something new. In the 1970s, the Watergate scandal forced President Nixon to resign after being investigated by a prosecutor he himself had appointed. In the 1990s, the Iran-Contra affair brought many Reagan officials to trial. More recently, Trump was indicted at the state level by a Democratic prosecutor. And now, it's Letitia James's turn to face accusations under a Republican administration. The difference today is that everything happens in public, even streamed live, shared, and commented on like a political sporting event. The big question is, if both sides are weaponizing the law, who will still believe in the law itself? People often say, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But American politics is the opposite. What happens in Washington never stays in Washington. It spreads across the world, shaping how other nations viewed democracy and justice. In summary, the Letitia James case isn't just an indictment. It's a mirror reflecting the two faces of America: justice and power. One side says, this is the law being enforced. The other says, this is politics disguised as justice. As for me, the final answer depends on how the court handles the case, and more importantly, on whether the people can still hold faith in justice itself. So, what about you? What do you think? Is this true justice or a political chess game carefully set in motion? Leave your thoughts in the comments, because this story, like America itself, still holds many unpredictable twists.